Hello, good evening, Cayman. Good evening, all of our listeners all over the world. Looking forward to spending some time with you this evening. Welcome to Books and Bush Tea. This is where the books are good and the tea is hot. And I have one of my favorite brews and one of my favorite cups this evening. This evening, we're going to have a really lovely guest. We had a really lovely guest last week as well. So this has been going well for us this year. And I'm going to introduce him to you in a little bit. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the week of reading. This week, you'll remember that last week we had Miss Joy Basdeo on, and she talked to us about her new book, which is a lovely little children's book that talks about Cayman from her childhood that she wrote for her grandchildren to really keep in touch with home as they travel the world. And now we are also sharing online on Instagram on the Books and Bush Tea. I'm going to actually share that so that you can find it. There are Miss Joy has actually given us a list of really, really good book recommendations. Each one of our guests brings something different. Miss Joy actually brought her reading life to us and shared that with us really, really well. And it's so fun because this week, I took the time to go and read one of those books. This week, I read The Correspondent, which was one of her top recommendations that she was reading through at the time. And I fell in love with the thing. It was such a lovely book. And I'm not going to give spoilers away, but I highly recommend it for those of you who are looking for a nice, quiet, interesting read. I didn't expect it to be interesting. And in fact, a little bit later on, I'm going to share with you the review that I wrote about it. But it is a book about an older lady who is about 73, I think she is, at the beginning of the book. And it's talking about her life through the letters that she writes to people and the letters that they write back. And I listened to it. So I heard the different voices of the different people. And it was such a lovely read. I did not expect it to be as good as it was. I thought it was going to be a lot more sedate than it was, but it was very, very interesting. The Correspondent by Virginia something or other. I'll tell you in a second. Virginia Evans. Now, I also finished the Hail Mary Project, which I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. My partner and I have been listening to the Hail Mary Project, which was written by Andy Weir. Andy Weir was also the writer who wrote the book The Martian that became a bestseller, like a blockbuster movie. Really good movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it, but I highly recommend reading the book because I feel like there's something about the detail of this book that lets you live in that world a lot longer. So The Martian was I think who starred in that again? Matt Damon starred in that. So he was actually astronaut that spent time on Mars, got stuck on Mars. And I'm not giving it away because it's in the previews, right? Wicked book. Thoroughly enjoyed that movie. So I saw The Martian, and then my partner, who was in love with The Martian, suggested, hey, you know what? This project, the Hail Mary Project is coming out as a movie. Maybe we should try and read the book in advance. And I am so glad I did because, one of my New Year's resolutions around reading was to come outside of the genre that I always read in. I always read a lot of fantasy, and I've started to kind of like spread my wings and come out a little bit because it's been a couple of years of escapism into fantasy. But the Hail Mary Project is science fiction. And science fiction has a very special place, I think, in humanity because you'll find that science fiction is almost predictive of what is going to be discovered. It's almost like it sparks the imagination of science. So I thoroughly enjoyed the Hail Mary Project. The movie's coming out in a couple of weeks, and we are going to be there probably on the first night because it was such a good book. Highly, highly, highly recommend. If you get a chance to read it beforehand, I think you're going to look forward to the movie just as much as I am. And that's going to be starring Ryan Gosling. So there was something on our Instagram this week as well where there was a recommendation to start a book club on where we would read books and then watch the movies and go to the movies together. I know there are a couple of our followers that have been talking about actually doing that. But you know what? That's the other thing that I wanted to spend some time to talk about today before we invite our guest in, who is Mr. Crawford, everybody's favorite school principal. So we're going to spend some time with Mr. Crawford this evening, just a little bit later on. One more thing before I get into my online tools, which is something I really want to talk to you guys about, that kind of opens up the world of reading in a very different way. It's there's a lot of, we do a lot of our life online, and I wanted to spend some time today on the rich ecosystem that exists on the internet for readers and also for writers. But we're going to spend a little time on that. But before we do, I wanted to like touch base and share with you that I had such a good time this week for the first time in a long time. I went into the Book Loft, and you know, the Book Loft is upstairs, the Humane Society. It's a charity bookshop. It is our probably our most well-stocked secondhand bookstore. And I had such a good time. I came up with $14 worth of books, and that was a lot of books. Really enjoyed myself at the Book Loft, and I highly recommend you all, particularly for those of us who are animal lovers. I know last week you all could hear my dog snoring in the background as we were talking about books and talking to Miss Joy. So it's kind of bringing two loves together, right? It's books as well as the animals that the purchases support. So highly recommend you visiting the Book Loft if you're looking for books and you don't want to break the bank. And they actually have some really good new stuff. And they have a really rich young adult teen section that doesn't get a lot of movement. But I'm actually going to start to go in. I love young adult fiction as well. So I'm really looking forward to like going in there and pillaging. I'm going to probably have to go and make some donations as well to clear some space on my bookshelves. But today I wanted to talk about the online richness that exists in the world of reading and also the world of writing. And I'm going to share with you a couple of different things. So first of all, I've been talking with you guys about listening to audiobooks. And I got a really cool message today from my Audible player. In 2025, I journeyed through 56 titles and an average 166 minutes per listening day. Isn't that crazy? 166 minutes. I mean, that's a couple of hours per day for 365 days. That's pretty amazing. I listen the most on Wednesdays. That is very interesting. I have no idea what happens on Wednesdays. And I achieved my longest stretch of 14 hours and 47 minutes on February 19th. I have no idea what happened then either, but it's kind of cool to see these types of stats. I pulled off an impressive 60-day listening streak starting on July 9th. And it actually gives you a lot more information. And I spent a lot of time in fantasy. And I actually have my favorite book I've been reading over and over and over to go to sleep at night. It's called Between by L.L. Starling. And it's a fun fantasy that isn't super stressful. So I thoroughly enjoyed that over the course of 2025. But this year I've decided, we're going to branch out. And you can see some of the titles that I would have read. And you can probably see this much better if you're looking at this on a bigger screen. But as you can tell, I've spent quite a lot of time in the fantasy space. Not romantasy so much, but mostly fantasy. But this is one of the things I love about these online tools. They tell you more about your reading habits than you even are conscious of sometimes. It's almost like the wrap-up they do on Spotify, right? But before we get any further, we are going to go and look at I'm going to pull this up for you. You're going to love this. This now is my, I'm going to share some of my tools. So the first of these tools is Goodreads. So you may have heard of Goodreads. And this is a little bit of a segue, so just bear with me. But you remember sometime in the last year or so, a young man committed a murder, or allegedly committed a murder in the middle of downtown New York. And he became an internet sensation. His name is Luigi Mangione. And Goodreads made the news for the first time, probably, when they talked about his Goodreads reading list. So Luigi Mangione, of course, is one of the most famous inmates in New York at the moment, who is going through his trial at the moment. I think it's actually doing like the pre-trial work on his... Don't ask me why I follow this, but sorry for the segue. But Goodreads is actually a place where you track your reading. And I think that was one of the things that made him a bit of a thirst trap for the ladies, particularly on Book Talk. So Luigi Mangione had a list of really rich reading on Goodreads. But let me show you a little bit about my Goodreads profile. So on Goodreads, you get to track your books. I don't do this consistently, so bear with me. When you see 156 books are listed, this is because I have spent time on Goodreads in 2026 and 2025, but not much further behind. That you can have, so I have my bookshelves. Your bookshelves, I have a want to read bookshelf. And you can see I want to read The Sliding Void. I loved Stephen Hunt when I was a teenager. I have a couple of nonfiction books on here. Some really cool things on here that I have on my list, like books about Reiki, Neruda in the Park. The Names was recommended to me by my colleague at work. It has a list of books that I'm currently reading. Truth of the matter is, I'm not reading all of these books at the moment. I have given up on some of these. I think I finished Sight Witch, but some of these were on my DNF pile, which are, for those of you who are not on like Book Talk or anything like that, your DNF pile is a did not finish or do not finish pile. But I am reading The Hidden Kingdom for the Wings of Fire #3. I'm reading that currently with my niece. And I actually have the Atlas Complex right on my desk because I was reading before we came live. So I have been reading the Atlas Complex, which is the third in the Atlas series, which is it starts with the Atlas 6 and then the Atlas, the Atlas 6, the Atlas Paradox, and now the third one is the Atlas Complex. This is such a complicated fantasy / science fiction, but it's an interesting read. It's so interesting. And it has like 6 or 7, or actually it's about 8 characters that are really like morally gray. Very complicated, weird people. But that's one of the ones that I'm reading right now. But you can see that I'm here to show you Book Talk. When you finished a book on, not Book Talk, sorry, Goodreads. When you finished a book on Goodreads, and I'm going to take you to this example. You can see The Chronicles of Between was one of my favorites. The Ether Witch is another one that I really like. That's a series of the House Witch, which is really cozy fantasy more than anything else. The Correspondent is the one that I was telling you about a little earlier on. So I want you to see what I've done. I was able to rate the book and then write a review of the book. I'm just going to read it really quickly. I enjoyed this book like a perfect cup of coffee at sunrise or a cool spring afternoon with the light returning at a pleasant slant. It was hyped up, and I was told to believe the hype, but I'm not used to a book that is hyped up being this dignified, rich, this delightful, this deep, this pleasant, this mature, and full of substance. It is honest but not crass. It is mature but not boring. It is simple in structure, but complex in themes. It made me, in my early 40s, open myself to embrace aging creatively. I feel like I know Sybil. And I'll skip forward. I will definitely read this again one day. I gave this book 5 stars. A lot of people did. And if you take a look at the book itself on Goodreads, you'll see the blurb of the book. You'll see who wrote the book. You'll see what is written by the other things written by the author. Books that are similar. You get all of the different reviews on it and what the overall rating is. So they've had very few people rate it 1 star and 2 and 3. It's mostly a 4-star and a 5-star book. So Goodreads is an excellent place to find a good book. If you actually get in, and I actually have friends, if I go onto my home, you can see what my friends are reading. Like I have my list of friends on my updates. My friend in Canada is reading multiple books in both Chinese and English. A friend of mine in the States is reading. I'm going to ask her about this series actually because I'm very interested in it. I have friends throughout the world that are reading different things. These are people I know, and then I link them on. It's kind of like Facebook, except it's for book readers. And you're comparing books and you're talking about them, and you can actually communicate with your authors. Sometimes what I really love about Goodreads is an author will go live on Goodreads and have like conversations. There's so many features on Goodreads. You can see there's a community piece here as well. But I don't want to spend the whole time on Goodreads, even though I think it's really the foundation of the online relationship with books. The next up, I'm going to pull up Reddit because I feel like Reddit is like a Gen Z thing that a lot of people don't really get into if they're older. And Gen Z has really made Reddit a place to get good information, a place to get good recommendations. And on this subreddit, there's a suggest me a book. It's a social media place where you get, it's like almost like an encyclopedia, crowdsourced encyclopedia for the world, where you can have conversations about different things. So just finished the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'd love to get more recommendations similar. My goal in January. So you see different things on this Reddit, on this subreddit. If you're looking for a book, I actually also belong to a group on Reddit that is fantasy, like fantasy readers. And it has 3.9 million members. And we get a lot of really good recommendations. If you're asking for a book, the chances are someone has read the books that you like and can give you a recommendation for something that is similar or something a little different. If you're looking for something specific, you can actually put it into Reddit and someone will give you an answer. So Reddit is also an excellent community, but people write about everything on Reddit, right? Also, there are Facebook book clubs. There's some that are local, but this is one that I'm on. Hang tight. Let me see if I can find it. The Book Lounge. Here it is. This is the Book Lounge. And it's one of those that I belong to at the moment where, how many books have you read so far in January? Just conversations about reading. For those of you who go to signings, do you go for the experience or do you only attend to meet the author? And then they talk about, what did you think of this book? So we get conversations about the books. We get conversations about Sarah J. Maas. Anyone read Other Than a Court of Thorns by Sarah J. Maas books? And some of them are, we get really good recommendations for fringe stuff, like that are not just out there. Like you can actually ask for things that, you don't see a lot of these things. This is the type of book I'm looking for. Can you give me good recommendations? So we have some really cool, hold on a second. I just got out of stream here. Hang tight. What just happened? Let's just exit that, shall we? All right, great. So this is a really good one. I love this particular book club, but there are actually some local book clubs. There are Cayman book clubs that meet together as well. At some point in time, I'd love to have them on, and we're going to talk about what it's like to create community around these books. Now, for those of you who are into podcasts, there are lots of really good podcasts on books. There are actually podcasts that are by writers. There are podcasts about, and you can go into Spotify and so on. But there's also TikTok and Instagram. And I'm going to show you some local ones. This is one of my favorites. This is an international one. She's really focused on what she calls cozy fantasy. And it's called Meg's Tea Room. I actually go to Meg's Tea Room a lot, particularly if I want to read something that is nice and quiet, that's going to feel comfortable with a cup of tea, that I can read before going to bed, that's not going to stress me out too much. Another TikTok account that I'd love for you to see is the Rose Petals _ So this is a young lady who actually is from Cayman. She's a Caymanian, and she has really, really good book recommendations. She does a lot of book reviews, and I really enjoy her perspectives because she has so many very interesting interests that are diverse. And so you get a lot of people that kind of comment on her work. And this is like her list. So this is the Haitian, Honduran, Indigenous Lit on my top 3 this year. I've read 18 books in 2024. Slow and intentional reading is always the goal. Grateful for stories of resistance, love, and joy. Do you have a favorite from this pile? I'm looking at that pile, and I actually have, I think I want to use that pile to create my TBR pile, which is my to be read pile. But this is her name is Caitlin, and Caitlin actually does really, really good book recommendations. I love her account. It's the Rose Petals _ We also have Lives of Kai, and she was on our show at the beginning of the year. You may have remembered it. She was one of the people that was talking to us about Caribbean writers, right? Caribbean writing. So if you look at her account, she does quite a lot of art, but she also does a lot of like book recommendations. Highly, 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 highly recommend touching base with her if you're looking for a recommendation on a Caribbean book. She's who I go to for my Caribbean books because she knows what I'm looking for and gives really good advice. This is one of her recommendations. She has a copy of Fair of Stones and Other Stories by Kay Miller. And she's been seeing this Kay Miller. She's been talking about this Kay Miller for a while. So I have it that I actually need to read one of these books real soon. All right. So this is like places to like find recommendations. So we've covered Goodreads, we've talked about Reddit, and we've talked about book clubs online. We talked about podcasts and TikTok and Instagram. Now, mind you, let's do a thing on TikTok. Book talk, generally speaking, is really about thirsty, like fae, kind of smutty erotica. Generally speaking, if you hear book talk, that's what they're talking about. But if you dig really deep, you'll find some good non-erotica books as well. I'm nothing against erotica, but it just seems like book talk is the place for erotica these days, particularly like that fantasy, romantasy type, big, what they call them, shadow daddy type reading. So book talk, I kind of take with a grain of salt. Instagram has a bit of a more diverse crowd, and you actually find some really good poets on Instagram. I really like to find poets on Instagram, and then I'll go buy their books, because poetry books are not often as well promoted as some of the fiction and nonfiction. So now, places to read. As you know, I love Audible. So this is my Audible account. Am I on Audible? I have 3 credits. But I'm going to open up my library and see what I have in here. I've got a lot of stuff in here. Y'all really getting into my secrets. Don't worry about that. Oops. Don't worry about that either. Let's get into it. All the security in the world. Oh, come on. Oh, Google. Never mind. We're not doing this right now. Anyway, in Audible, you can actually get really good audiobooks, but also, for those of you who use Spotify is excellent. Spotify has a lot of books on there that have not made it to Audible, and they also have a previous version of an audiobook, sometimes read by the author, that has not yet or that is also on Audible. But the cool thing that I love about Audible these days is that, and this might be something that you're into, particularly if you're a reader that grew up listening to dramatized work on radio. And I know that it's something that still happens a lot in England, where you have dramatized works of fiction on the radio. There's certain like story times on like the BBC and certain radio stations in England, even now. And I think even in Jamaica, they have such a strong radio culture, right? But if you are into that dramatized work, Audible actually has fully dramatized versions of books that they're starting to bring out. So recently they've been advertising the Harry Potter series, fully dramatized, with a full cast and full, with the voices and so on. And it's been a really, really lovely change. So you're kind of getting into that old version, like we're going back to the roots of radio, which is really, really, really exciting to me. I loved radio growing up. But before we move on, I wanted to touch on this last app actually, you know what? There's another one I haven't talked about, but I'm going to leave that for last. This is Blinkist. So Blinkist is really for nonfiction. I find it's really like where you get nonfiction, and then so Man's Search for Meaning. Let's look at this one by Viktor Frankl. Really famous book. But what they've done is that they've taken the book and they've broken it down into 8 key ideas, which means it's 8 sections, and it's down into 17 minutes. So it's a summary of a book, of a nonfiction book, that you can either read or listen to. That's what I love about this. You can actually listen to it. You can get audio and text, but you can read the 17-minute read, or it can be read to you. And one of the things that I use Blinkist for is to decide whether or not I want to buy the nonfiction book. Do I want to buy this self-help or personal development book? Is it going to be worth it for me? I want to see what the key ideas are. And sometimes I can just spoil it for you. You're just like, I can't be asked to buy the book now. But sometimes it actually really intrigues you, and you want to hear how the author got to that conclusion. So you go and buy the book, or you fall in love with the book and you get the hard copy and you bring it home. But Blinkist is a really cool place to not only download some of the ideas, right, before having to digest the whole book, but also it's a cool place for you to decide what to buy. Really, really good place to decide what to buy. There's a book on here that I think it was on here, and it actually inspired me to buy it. I'm trying to find. There are a couple of really good ones. This is one that I really like a lot. Mating in Captivity. It's a famous one. Anyone who gets involved in like relationship coaching or anything like that has come across Esther Perel. Think and Grow Rich is a really old, famous one. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Like, these are the types of books that you're going to find here. I often don't have the attention span for nonfiction and self-help, so I will blink it. And it's really good to listen to in the car. If you have a short place to go, you want to download this idea and understand it. But then the last one I'd like you to see, the last app that I'd like to share with you is called Substack. Now, Substack, I'm very new to Substack, so bear with me, right? But I'm going to share with you my account on Substack so you can see what it's like. I share some of my fiction writing on Substack, the ones that I don't intend to publish. And there's also like a chat function on Substack, right? I have a series called Drug Wives that I've been publishing bit by bit on Substack, but I've also been following some other really good writers on Substack. One of them is called, her name is Neve, and she talks about, so there's so many writers. This is a place for writers to share their writing as they develop their writing style. It is also a place where you find a lot of very well-established writers. Substack is like the new version of a magazine, like a magazine stand, where almost all of the big magazines are represented on Substack. Let's take a look. We can search, you'll see on Substack, there are quite a lot of different types of writer. Let's take a look at humor. What's on Substack for humor? You see quite a lot of the comedians will have something on Substack. Let's look for someone famous. You know who I saw on here the other day? I think it was J.K. Rowling. I don't know if I spelled that right, but I think she's on here. But there's a lot of work about her. Oh, never mind. I think she's dipping out these days because of all of the stuff that's going on with her and the transgender activity. She's gotten a lot of heat from her. But you can see publications here as well, right? So we have a lot of options. You have your posts, people. There are different publications. So you're actually, there's some really good magazines and well-established magazines as well. But I actually have subscribed mostly to the lifestyle stuff and some of the fiction. I really enjoy reading fiction writers that have not yet been found. But this is a little bit of a different type of. This is like a combination. Substack is like a combination of. Oh gosh, what's that one that they call? Patreon. It's like a combination of Patreon and a magazine stand. So you can actually subscribe to a single writer and get to know that single writer's work quite well. Or you can subscribe to like a whole genre and find things like a magazine stand. So it's a new one for me. It's very much a social media movement as well, because they do have like a chat option. I haven't participated in a few weeks, but since I've been writing, I've been getting a lot of inspiration from here. I've actually made some really good friends on Substack. I quite like Substack. But that kind of concludes this segment of what we've been talking about, which is the online tools for reading. I haven't really talked about Amazon and Kindle because I think that that's actually something that everybody knows about. There are other forms of reading. There's iReader on your phones as well, but some of these are just like a little bit different. Add a little bit more excitement to your online reading process. Goodreads, I highly recommend. If you only pick one, item to follow from all of the online tools that I've suggested here, I highly recommend that it be Goodreads. Goodreads is awesome. Before we go any further, I'm going to also share with you that Books and Bush Tea is live on Books and Bush Tea on Instagram today. For the first time, we're supposed to be live, and I hope that's going well, at Books and Bush Tea on Instagram. So, you know, we're live on a number of different places. Of course, we're on CMR TV, but we're also on the CMR Instagram and YouTube. But today we're also on our own little page, and that's kind of cool. So we're growing up just a little bit. If you have any questions, just drop a comment wherever you are watching, or you can also message us on WhatsApp at 345-925-8521. So now's the fun part. You all have been so patient. I am excited to introduce to you Mr. Herbert Crawford. Mr. Crawford is a retired educator, having worked with the Cayman Islands government in education for almost 40 years. He served in various roles as a classroom teacher, a principal. He was a principal to my own classmates in a different district, an education officer, and senior school improvement officer. He has served also as a lay pastor in the United Church of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands for the last 30 years. He is a commercial, and this is part I did not know, because it's kind of cool. Mr. Crawford is like an onion, just peeling layers upon layers upon layers and learning more and more. But he's a commercial crop farmer, and he's focused on the growing of mangoes, avocados, naseberries, longan, you know, the little tiny brown ones that are kind of like a guinea, coconuts, and jackfruit. And he started his writing career. We're going to hear more about that in 2014 when he wrote and he published his first book, which is 108 Prayers Straight from the Heart. Since then, he has written and published 366 prayers for all seasons, a daily devotional of the word, reflection and prayers of praise. And his latest book is a daily devotional, Be Strong and Courageous. And I have a copy of it here. And it's so pretty. And he's married to Marissa Crawford. He's been married for the last 51 years, and he has a daughter and 2 granddaughters. And we are going to welcome to the stage Mr. Herbert Crawford. Evening, Mr. Crawford. Good to see you, sir.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
It's been a long evening so far.
Oh, great. He's been sitting in the background, hanging out with us for a while.
Past my sleeping time now, so...
I know. It is a little bit late.
I really enjoyed the information you shared.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have one more customer to your platform.
Oh, yes. You come hang out with us anytime, Mr. Crawford.
I certainly will. Have really learned a lot. I have taken notes, and
oh wow,
have to get on board.
But you know, Mr. Crawford, you way ahead of me in some of these things as well. So whenever I invite guests, I go and I hang out with my guests for a little bit first, just to kind of feel out what you would like to talk about on the show. And Mr. Crawford was sharing with me some of his online writing tools, which are really, really cool. I'm not gonna tell you secrets, don't worry. But Mr. Crawford, tell us how your books have. I'd love to hear your author's journey, because you have a really interesting one.
Okay, so let me begin at the beginning. My journey started in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that was after retirement, and I was taking a trip to Texas,
mm-hmm.
in the United States, to visit my brother and his wife. And my brother's wife was ill at the time, and I traveled from Cayman to Miami to get my connecting flight to Texas. So I had hours to wait, and I had my little laptop at the time, and I was sitting in Miami's airport, and this you may call it a vision. A voice spoke to me and said, "Why don't you write?" Just like that, as clear as crystal. And my response was, "Well, what do I write? I'm not a writer."
Mm-hmm.
So then I said to myself, okay, the message is I'm going to look for my sister-in-law who is not well, and I think she needs a lot of prayers. And there and then I opened my little laptop, and things, I was illuminated. Things just flowed. The Bible verses came along, and the prayers just flowed. So I like to tell this story because between Miami and Texas, I had written 52 prayers straight from the heart.
Oof.
And then I thought about a lot of people whom I knew they didn't go to church, they didn't pray, they were afraid of praying. And I said, you know what? When I came back home, then I sat down and I wrote another 52. So that was 104. I said, I will add another four to it to make 108. Where
Mm.
this came from, I learned one day from a Muslim person who
Uh-huh.
said, do you know that's a significant number? I said, really? He says, go home and look. And in the Muslim world, 108 is very significant. I did not know. And I entitled it 108 prayers straight from the heart. And that's how it started. And then I took a long break for some reason or another. I became involved in working with the courts as a guardian ad litem, attending to the needs of young people who were affected in one way or another. I had to represent them in court, had to recommend where they should go. And then after that, I was appointed the first chairman of the Cayman Islands Monitoring Board for the prison.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 3 years in the prison, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Say to people, I have spent 3 years in North where they look at me. Really, I spent I was monitoring and I worked with a team of persons. So the two places I really didn't want to go, I ended up spending 3 years in the courts. And
Mm-hmm.
so I that brought us up to 2020. And what happened in 2020?
COVID. Lockdown.
COVID came, we were locked down, but we were not knocked down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that time, on personal reflection, from where we were coming from after going through Ivan and that sort of thing. Here was COVID again. And the
Mm-hmm.
inspiration came back to me. And this was my book, 366 Prayers for All Seasons. This was the quickest one I have to date
Uh-huh.
because I could not go anywhere. We had access to the internet. I had books in my study that I used. Of course, the Bible is the main one. And so I guess within 3 months, I had produced this 366 prayers for all seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one
I
of my,
love the cover.
yes, it's beautiful, huh?
It's really good. All the four seasons represented.
Right. And very innovative.
Yeah.
The books I recommend because even today it is still relevant. Because at the time I spoke to, people couldn't be aware because of COVID. So many people were getting sick, they were dying. A lot of things were happening at that time, and I was internalizing, and I was thinking not only about us in Cayman, I was thinking about the world itself. So
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this one, in,
Mm-hmm.
and this was published, I think, 2021.
Okay.
In
Okay.
2020, to publish it, I had to find a publisher, and so
Mm-hmm.
I did it through Christian Faith Publishing in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So keep on going.
Yeah.
So after
Of
that,
course.
I just said, well, I'm going to be doing a devotional. So that
Mm-hmm.
366 prayers for all seasons, just prayers, and I
Mm-hmm.
said, do a daily devotional. Many people are accustomed to reading the daily word, and
Mm-hmm. A small one. Mm-hmm.
right, and I recognize I have read those probably all my life, and those also influence me to write devotionals. The
Mm-hmm.
only difference is in the daily work, daily bread, you have multiple writers,
Yeah.
but it's just it's just so I'm solo, just one writer.
Mhm.
It has really taken me an extraordinary long time to put together.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I had to use any literature that I could find that and books. I really invested over the years in many books on prayers.
Mhm.
You know, if you go into my library, most of maybe 50 or 60% of my books are religious,
Yeah.
and a lot of them, you know, they have prayers. So I decided that I would reread, and use some of the material to include. So this one was completed in 20, published in 2023.
Mhm. Mhm.
But generally, it takes about almost a year.
Yeah, I can imagine because it's a daily every you're writing an entry for every day of the year. Just before we get any further, for those of our listeners who don't know what a devotional is, can you tell us a little bit about what that is? 'Cause I know what it is because I grew up with them, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a little before you go on as well. But what is a devotional?
For example, a devotional is something that you reflect on. You use a Bible, you take a Bible verse, for example, and you look at it and you try to interpret what it is saying,
Mm-hmm.
speaking to us, and then following that, it is followed by prayers, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
not only getting a Bible verse and you're left blank. It explains
Mm-hmm.
what it means, the substance, how it impacts us, how we apply what is being said, and
Mm-hmm.
then the prayers are normally based upon the scripture that was read. So that is basically the format. Some devotionals are a bit different. Some will spend more time giving you content.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what they and Daily Bread. That's what those two books they do. They give you more content, and they'll give you a line of prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Might pose some questions. So devotionals will come in different forms. I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
try to make mine as simple as possible. And a lot of the feedback I'm getting is that people appreciate the simplicity.
Yeah.
The way I try to explain the verses,
Yeah.
saying to us how it is impacting my life or how it should impact our lives, and what's the message from it, and then I lead into prayer. So this was my first attempt, um, a daily devotional of the word, reflection, and prayers of praise. This
Mm-hmm.
first attempt of doing a full scale devotional.
Mm-hmm.
It was very time consuming, but you know, I enjoyed it because it took me through the Bible from Genesis to Revelations, and I myself personally has benefited from doing this exercise,
Mm-hmm.
and that this has gone maybe across the globe. It's in the
Mm-hmm.
UK, it's in the US, it's on Amazon, it's on Books a Million, and a few other outlets,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this was my third. No, this was my third one. I didn't show you. I didn't show you my first one. Sorry about that. But
Oh,
this is
that's good. Oh, that's
100
the prayers now.
prayers
Oh,
straight.
Mr. Crawford, I was going to tell you, because when you said 108 the first time, I was like, where have I heard this before? It's not just the Muslims. There's actually there's a practice of using mala beads in Hinduism, the prayer
Uh,
beads, and they always have 108 beads.
okay.
So it's a prayer per bead. So it's interesting that you have 108 prayers. And it's such that you were called to do that. It's just so very universal a message, right?
It is. indeed. And this one has, I didn't, what I, purchased, what I ordered, they just went.
Mm-hmm.
They just went. And I must hasten to say that a lot of my books are to be found in the prisons because I do prison ministry. I visit and I donate my books to prisoners who need it. And so I pray with them. It's my ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so they get a book for free. No matter how expensive it is, they get it for free
Yeah.
because I really, you know, the Lord has blessed me and I want to pass on some of that blessing to others who need it even more than I do, right?
Yeah.
But sorry, this was my first book and I'm very proud of it because it was my first attempt of writing.
Yeah.
Thing. So
That's
let
where
me,
you fell in love with the writing life.
yes, I did. So then my most recent book, like you just showed it
Oh, I love it.
last
It's
year,
so pretty.
is Strong and Courageous. Actually, I must share that as writers, we do have challenges, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, the same book was supposed to be Fear Not Beloved,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
got printed, but because my aim in doing this book was to my target audience were older persons, and the
Mm-hmm.
script, the writing there came back very small.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
And so I had to get the done over.
Yeah.
And because I was not using the same company, I,
Mm-hmm.
I decided to change it. And this is what I was able to do: be strong and courageous.
Yeah. And I love the cover because it is very celestial.
Yes.
It's a beautiful cover. I think it's so calming as well.
Yeah.
Ah, I messaged my family earlier, Mr. Crawford. You're gonna love this, because I was like, we used to read a devotional every morning. I was gonna say this to you, and I messaged them to say what was the name of the devotional that we grew up using, because we got one of the same. It was like a series every single year. And I just got the message just now from my brother. It was called The Morning Watch.
Or the morning watch.
You remember? So you know that this is early 80s. I don't even think this exists anymore. But The Morning Watch was something that our parents. So in the answer to what is a devotional, I would love to use your book as an example, this one that you have now, because this reminds me of The Morning Watch as a child. And I always used to, whenever we got a new devotional, I would pick it up and read my birthday.
Mhm.
So that's exactly what I did with yours. So, and just to share how you described it,
Right.
I'm trying to show it here. You can see that you start it with a title, and then you have the Bible verse. You
Right.
have your interpretation, and then I love how much time you have devoted to prayer, because sometimes that is left as two lines,
Yes.
and you've actually spent a lot of time on the prayer piece and the
Yeah.
reflection. Yeah.
Yes. And just to say that, I'm now feverishly working my fifth book,
Mhm.
which I'm hoping to go to the press in about March. I'm giving myself time because it is very comprehensive. It will be the most detailed of the five that
Okay.
I, because I am focusing on prayers of adoration,
Mhm.
of confession, of thanksgiving, and of supplication.
Mhm.
And very comprehensive because it is all encompassing, and it is taking me a longer time because when you multiply 365 by 4,
Good for
it's a, it's a
that.
lot.
That's
And
very special.
yeah, it's a lot of work, and when people read it, they must feel, they must feel,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And
And when you write it, it's almost like you have to feel it to
you have to,
deliver it.
and so when I reread, and if I see something that didn't sound too good. I have to rewrite. So it's the rewriting
Mm-hmm.
now taken me a long time because I have, thank God, I have completed everything. But let me just share with your audience how I go about writing this. It's very comprehensive. First of all, I have to decide on the scripture verses that I choose, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I go from Genesis to Revelation. I have
Mm-hmm.
to take those. I try I'm trying to use a thematic approach where, like for example, in this one, the title suited the way it was written because
Yeah.
all of the Bible verses has the word fear in them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't,
Mm-hmm.
but it is not the fear like afraid of you, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the extent to which we fear God, we reverent Him, how we serve Him, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All of that, I had to go through the Bible, had to search for all of these Bible verses, had to write them down, had to use my concordance, had
Mm-hmm.
to use the Bible itself, the fine prints and all of that to get the best understanding and interpretation of what the writer at the time was saying,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how that is to be applied to our life today, not just for the past, but also for today. So you have to select that, then I have to do some research on it, look at the background at the time when it was written, what was happening at that time, and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has really helped me in my writing. Believe it or not, I have made 3 trips to Israel, the Holy Land.
Mm-hmm.
And that in and of itself has really opened my mind to understanding the Bible a bit better than I did before I made my visit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in a
Mm-hmm.
certain stories you read in the Bible. For example, the guy who was at the pool of Bethesda for
Uh-huh.
30 years and no healing took place. And I wondered, how is it that every day or when it happened, so many people were there and this man could not get into that pool? Until I went, I realized that where he was at the gate, the pool was somewhere else. And no way. And
Oh.
it
Mm-hmm.
would never,
Well, you could visualize it. You could put it all together.
absolutely. And so that
Ah.
life, and it has impacted the way I'm writing. I'm not the smartest writer. I try my best and I intend to write until I can't do it anymore.
Mr. Crawford, I like your style because it is very, it is thoughtful, but it is accessible.
Right.
And I also like that you have made it so simple in your process and you're devoted to making sure that it is accessible even in the size of the font.
Mhm.
And I mean, we don't have a whole lot more time to talk about it, but I would love for you to tell my audience how to get in touch with you and
I-
how to get access to these books throughout the course of the next week. I'm also, because they're all on Amazon, right?
Yes, they are on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Over the course of the next week, I'm going to share each one of your books on the Books and Bush Tea Instagram so that we can find them. I'm going to find the Amazon links and put them up as well. But
Okay.
how can our folks get in touch with you?
I'm going to give them my number, right? So it's
Okay.
just call me. I self-publish and I try to promote my books myself because my experience has been locally, I don't think local authors get the type of support
Mhm. Mhm.
or our booksellers because
Mhm.
I've had books in several places and I'm yet to collect a dime.
Mhm.
But
Mhm. Mhm.
so I just do it personally. And what I
Yeah.
do, I work with all persons. So some of them will take some of my books and they will invite their friends to buy a copy and I'll give them up to 50% of the sales from the book. It's helping them. And just to say, last year, I donated over 300 of my books to older persons, free of cost.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's not. I'm not in there to make anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my ministry just to spread the gospel in that way that people can understand, and if it impacts their lives and make them better persons, I give God the glory.
Yeah.
So
You're not
my
in it for the commercial success, but they're flying. Like you can't keep the books because they're that good. I
absolutely
have there's a reader in and one of my former guests was sharing with me that their mom gets your book every single year. Like every time you have one, and they're a big fan, and they actually reread your book. They reread your devotional. You know what I love about this too is that it's not dated, because some of the books are dated. Some of the devotionals will tell you what year,
right.
and so
So
they not only focus on the date, but they also look at the day of the week.
right.
But this is usable
If,
across all the years. You can do this every year.
for example, my wife and I use two of our books. We use one in the morning and we use one
Mhm. Ah,
as
that was
our
another question I had for you, because what time of day? Because we were morning devotional readers, but I know that there were other families that would have done this in the evening, like before you go to bed. And so there's a restful process, right? When do you prefer? Which do you prefer? Because you're doing both.
I'm doing both because first
Yeah.
thing that's what we do.
Yeah.
And before we came on, because I knew I would be a bit late, we had our devotion before.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we're kind of flexible. But let me
Hmm.
finish give you my number. It's
Oh,
nine
mhm.
six
Say
five
again.
it's 916 5748.
916
Five
5748.
Yeah.
And I'll share that with our audience real quick.
Can deliver the books any place, anywhere, not anytime.
Yeah, we can be reasonable now.
Yeah.
Okay, like folks, don't be calling Mr. Crawford anytime past 9 o'clock. He didn't say it, but I'm saying it. 8 o'clock is stretching it. Okay, we
That's
have
not
to have our sleep.
9 o'clock still in my bedtime, yeah.
That's okay. But Mr. Crawford, thank you so much for being with us. And I know that you're available on WhatsApp as well, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So and I would also offer, if there's anyone that would like to reach out to Mr. Crawford, if not directly, you can also um, reach out directly to Books and Bush Tea, and we'll make sure that we put you in touch with him. If you've missed his number in any way, we'll make sure we also share the books this week. Mr. Crawford, you have been a wonderful guest, and I think I feel like I should have given you a whole lot more time.
Well,
We need to check in with you because you have another book that you're working on right now, right?
my next book, maybe by about April, May, I am
Hmm.
to come on to be your guest and to share again.
I would love to have you. So
Yeah,
whenever you have that new book in hand, I promise to give my mom this copy.
they better get
But
on then.
you think so, right? I should probably get another one, but that's okay because I already did quite a bit of skimming of it, and I
Okay.
might have to come get the next one. But I
Okay.
really am interested in the 108 prayers. I think that's the one that I would like to have a copy of. So I'm gonna. If you don't have any of them, I'll get that on Amazon. You don't worry about me. I can
Oh,
make sure.
you can get a free copy from me.
Oh, bless. Oh, bless. Thank you so much, Mr. Crawford. It's always a pleasure. And I'm so grateful for the service that you're doing to our community, to your church, to the prison, to the courts. I think, to older persons that are in the community who have actually become very, very attached to the work that you do. I'm so grateful for what you have done. And what I also love, Mr. Crawford, is how you have embraced your journey even in your retirement and your purpose. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I
Yes.
look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And it was nice sharing on this platform. And I look forward to be on it again. Thanks a lot and have a wonderful night.
Bless. God
Bless.
bless everyone. And God bless you, Mr. Crawford. Good night.
Bye.